Method 303 applies to the determination of visible emissions from byproduct coke oven battery sources. Simply stated, you, the observer, are responsible for identifying visible coke oven emissions from a variety of sources throughout the coke oven battery. The results obtained using this method are used to determine compliance with standards set forth in Part 63 of Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations. Visible emissions, or VE, appear as puffs or plumes of smoke. Unlike Method 9, Method 303 does not require the observer to measure the opacity of the emission, but simply that the observer record the presence of visible emissions. As you move forward with your training toward becoming a certified observer, you will gain a general understanding of the coking process. Additionally, you'll begin to appreciate the potential hazards and consequently the safety concerns which must be addressed. Coke oven batteries present numerous safety hazards. The coking process uses high temperatures and heavy machinery is frequently in use. Therefore, inspectors must complete the appropriate health and safety courses before becoming certified. As this videotape continues, pay close attention to the material presented. If, after viewing the tape, you feel that there is something you do not fully understand, see your instructor for more information. Before beginning your inspection, be certain that you have all the materials necessary to accurately record your findings. These include a watch, a stopwatch, the various standardized inspection forms, a clipboard, a pen, and all required safety equipment, such as a hard hat, safety glasses with side shields, steel-toed boots, a fit-tested respirator, and flame-retardant protective clothing. Over the course of your inspection, you will have traveled the entire length of the oven battery, both at the ground level and topside. The order in which you inspect the various sections of the battery is up to you and the conditions which present themselves at a given site. For the purposes of this videotape, we will illustrate a complete battery inspection beginning with the door traverse. The intent of this particular procedure is to determine the presence of VE released from coke oven door areas while walking at a steady, normal walking pace at a safe and reasonable distance from the oven battery. The act of walking along the length of the coke oven battery is known as a traverse. A single inspection of the oven doors, called a test run, consists of 2 timed traverses, one for the coke side of the battery and one for the push side. During a traverse, look around the perimeter of each door. This includes the entire area on the vertical face of the oven, between the bench and the top of the battery, between 2 adjacent buckstays. Leaks may be seen emerging from the oven door itself, from the chuck door, or from cracks in the masonry or brickwork. An oven door is considered leaking if VE are detected originating from anywhere in this area. The observer begins his traverse by positioning himself in the yard, outside of the push car or quench car tracks, alert to any hazards or obstacles which may lie in his path. Now, let's watch an observer as he carries out an inspection. First, note that it is important to prepare the inspection sheet prior to beginning the traverse. Be sure to record the type of inspection, the date and time of the inspection, and other pertinent information. Starting the stopwatch, he proceeds to walk at a steady, normal pace along the battery. A typical pace would average 3 seconds per oven door without stopping or staring. A pace slower than 4 seconds per door is unacceptable. This proper walking pace is essential to the acceptability of your results. The procedure used to determine the acceptability of results will follow this demonstration. During the traverse, the observer carefully surveys the entire door area for visible emissions. Because a leak can occur at any point along a door seal, it is important that he observes the full perimeter of each oven door. Upon seeing a leak, The observer stops to record the oven number on the inspection sheet. A door which is observed as leaking is counted only once, even if emissions can be seen escaping from more than one area of the door. Once the leaking door has been recorded, the observer continues the traverse. The actual time of the traverse includes only the time spent observing the doors and recording the leaks on the inspection sheet. You do not count time spent moving to other positions for an unobstructed view, or the time lost waiting for obstacles, such as the door machine, to move out of the way. There are two accepted ways of dealing with obstructions during a traverse. In the first example, fugitive emissions from a quench car transporting hot coke have obscured the observer's view of the oven doors. Upon recognizing the obstruction, the observer stops the stopwatch, notes the last door inspected, and simply waits for the view to clear. Once his view has cleared, he starts the stopwatch and resumes the traverse from the door where he left off. The second option for handling an obstruction is seen in this example. During his traverse, the observer encounters a series of doors blocked by machinery. As before, upon noting the obstruction, the observer stops his stopwatch and notes the last door observed. However, in this case, he moves past the obstruction. Here, he starts the stopwatch and resumes the traverse. When this option is chosen, the observer must return to inspect the bypass doors. If upon returning he is still unable to observe the doors are considered not observed and should be noted on the inspection sheet. If, however, the doors are no longer blocked by the machinery, the observer would continue as before. If the doors were blocked because of charging operations, the observer would exclude the most recently charged door from the inspection. During and at the completion of the traverse of each side of the battery, fill in the appropriate information requested on the door area inspection sheet, including the time of the traverse periods and the number of inoperable or missed ovens. If the inspection has been delayed because of obstructions or fugitive emissions, record the period of the time delay and document the nature of the visual interference under Comments. Likewise, note any other pertinent observations in the comments area. There are certain emissions which may be observed in the door area but are not considered as door area leaks. These include emissions from ovens where the door has been removed, emissions from hot coke that has spilled on the bench after pushing, and emissions from smoldering coal. In cases where there is some question, note the observation under Comments and make a determination when more information is available to you. For a more detailed listing of the possible exceptions to recorded VE, consult your instructor. When batteries have sheds to control pushing emissions, conduct the inspection from outside the shed if feasible. If this is not possible, conduct the inspection from the bench. When walking on the bench, be aware of special safety considerations and follow the instructions of company personnel. After completing both the push side and coke side traverses, record the total number of seconds accumulated and determine the acceptability of your results. A computer program will be provided by your instructor to assist you in your calculations. Additionally, both formulas and examples are provided in your workbook. Now let's briefly review some of the key elements of the door area traverse procedures. First, and most importantly, a steady, normal walking pace is essential to inspecting the doors. During your traverse, VE observed originating from anywhere between two adjacent buckstays above the bench is considered a door area leak. VE can be seen escaping from the door, chuck door, between the brickwork, or from between the door jamb and the brick. Fugitive emissions from other sources can obscure your view of the doors. Remember, unless the emissions originate from the door area, they are not considered door area leaks. You do not count VE from ovens where the door has been removed. There are two options for handling obstructions to view. The first is to wait until the view has cleared and then to resume the traverse. The second is to skip the doors that are blocked from view and return to inspect them later. If, upon returning to complete the traverse, the doors are still blocked, consider the affected ovens as not observed. You may now stop the videotape and turn to your workbook to review this material. When you're ready, you can resume watching the videotape. Having completed the door area traverse, we will now examine the requirements of a topside traverse. The purpose of this procedure is to determine the presence of VE escaping from topside lids, off-take systems, and collecting mains on the top of the battery. Each of these three sources is inspected separately. However, both the topside lid inspection and the off-take inspection can be done at the same time. For the purposes of this videotape, we will examine each of the inspections separately, beginning with the topside lids. Note: clearance for personnel on the top side of all batteries is limited by charging machines, standpipes, and other equipment. Batteries differ greatly in that respect. It is essential that you become well aware of the safety requirements, including personnel clearance restrictions, on the top side of each battery to be inspected. Along the top of each oven in the battery are lids for ports used in the charging process. Typically, batteries have either 3 or 4 lids per oven. During coking, these lids may leak. To conduct a topside battery traverse, position yourself as close as possible to the center line, note the time, and start the stopwatch. Begin to walk at a normal pace from one end of the battery to the other. Again, the walking pace must not exceed an average of 4 seconds per oven to complete a single traverse, pausing only to make appropriate notations in the topside inspection sheet. Upon observing VE from a leaking lid, pause and record the oven number and the identifying number of the topside port or ports seen discharging VE. A single port with more than one point of escaping VE counts as only one leak. Once the proper notations have been made, resume the traverse. Follow the same guidelines for handling visual interference as indicated for the door area traverse. To observe the lids on the last oven charged, you must wait approximately 5 minutes until after the completion of the charge to give the operator sufficient time to properly lute the oven lids. Make sure that the information recorded on the inspection form is in the proper order, including the time the traverse began and ended, the numbers of ovens with visible emissions, the number of ports, and under the comments portion of the report, the time of and reason for any delays, the number of ovens affected, and any other pertinent observations. Once the traverse is complete, determine the acceptability of your results. There are certain exemptions which you do not record as topside VE. These include ports which are open during charging or ovens undergoing maintenance. The plant will provide you with this information. In both cases, record the oven number and make a notation under the comments section of the inspection sheet. When lids are replaced after charging, operators seal or lute the lids with a special slurry. After luting, steam may be emitted from the seal as water in the slurry boils off. This steam is not counted as VE. Similarly, visible emissions from flue inspection ports and caps are not counted as lid emissions. Finally, emissions from cracks in the brickwork are not counted as topside lid VE, but they are noted under comments. In addition to the topside ports, each oven has an offtake, located along one or both sides of the top of the oven battery. Offtake systems provide a passage for oven gases traveling from the oven to the collector main. There are a number of different areas where leaks are likely to be observed. The junction point of the standpipe and oven, the seal around the standpipe cap, and the flange between the gooseneck and the collecting main. A leak from any of these points is considered offtake system VE. To properly perform a test run of the offtake system, you will need to note the time, start the stopwatch, and begin to traverse the battery topside, walking as close to the center line as possible. Each oven offtake observed leaking is counted as one offtake leak, even if more than one leak is observed. Upon observing an emission, pause and identify the leaking offtake system on your inspection sheet. Likewise, note any other pertinent observations in the comments area of the inspection sheet. Once you have entered your observations and remarks, resume the traverse. If, during the traverse, an emission appears questionable, a closer look is allowed to verify a leak. Before leaving the center line, the observer stops the stopwatch and then carefully moves closer to the standpipe, alert to any obstacles or moving machinery. If, after closer inspection, the VE is not seen originating from the offtake system, the leak is not counted. The observer then returns to the center line, restarts the stopwatch, and resumes the traverse. If, while standing close to the standpipe, the observer sees VE that was not detected from the center line, that VE is not counted as offtake system VE. Only emissions seen from the center line are counted as offtake system VE. Handle any visual interferences or delays in the same manner as with the previous traverses. As before, there are exceptions to what may be counted as VE. This list of exclusions is detailed in your printed materials. Upon encountering any of these exceptions, note the number of each oven and the reason for the exclusion. Example, oven 56, decarbonization. Again, determine the acceptability of your results. Now let's continue with a brief review. First, the purpose of the lid inspection is to determine the number of lids exhibiting visible emissions. Clearance for personnel on the top side of the battery is limited. It is essential that you are aware of safety requirements in all areas. The topside traverse is timed in the same way as the door traverse. Lids exhibiting more than one leak are counted as only one visible emission. Emissions from between the brickwork and from flue caps are not counted as VE. Luting material used to seal lids emits steam as it dries. It is not counted as VE. After charging, wait approximately 5 minutes before observing lids from a recently charged oven. Each oven in the battery has an offtake system from which there are a number of different areas where leaks are likely to be observed. A leak from any of these points is considered as offtake system VE. A closer look at questionable offtake system VE is permitted. However, only leaks which were first observed from the center line can be counted. You may now stop the videotape and turn to your workbook to review this material. When you're ready, you can resume watching the videotape. Another potential emission source that you will observe is the charging system. An actual inspection of the charging system would consist of observations from 5 consecutive charges. For the purpose of this video, we are only showing the procedure for a single charge. Regardless of the configuration of the charging system, you should stand in a position where you can safely see the entire charging system. Sources of VE from charging systems include Larry car hoppers, Larry car slide gates or doors, drop sleeves, which are tubes that extend from the Larry car to the oven ports, and the topside ports of the oven being charged. The charging operation begins as coal starts to flow from the Larry car into the oven ports. It ends when the last lid is replaced. During the charging period, be sure to observe all potential sources of VE from the entire charging system. The charging operation timing procedures differ from those used elsewhere during the inspection. In this case, start the stopwatch upon observing VE and stop the stopwatch when the VE are no longer seen emerging. Continue your observations until the charging period is complete. Single puffs should be timed only for the period it takes for the emission to emerge from the charging system. When VE are seen emerging from 2 sources during a charge, time them as one continuous emission. The charging system inspection procedure also has specific requirements as to what should and should not be considered as VE. Do not count emissions from smoldering coal which may be laying on top of the oven, or fugitive VE from elsewhere on the battery. If at any time fugitive VE from other sources along the battery prevents a clear view of the charging system during charging, stop the stopwatch, note the visual interference under comments, and label the observation as an observation of an incomplete charge. To finish your inspection, record all the information necessary on the inspection sheet. When complete, the inspection sheet should contain all the information necessary to properly calculate the results of the inspection. The remaining procedure is the inspection of the collecting main for any emissions that may be present. This inspection is optional and should be carried out periodically at the inspector's discretion. A routine inspection of the collecting mains is to be done on a daily basis by the owner-operator. Begin your inspection by recording the time of day on your inspection sheet. Then start the traverse. As with the inspection of the offtake system, the observer should note any emission escaping from a seam or junction along the length of the collecting main. The collecting main inspection consists of a traverse of both the collecting main catwalk and the battery topside along the entire side closest to the collecting main. At double main batteries, inspect both collecting mains. Upon observing VE from any portion of the collecting main, pause, record the number of the oven closest to the source of the VE, and indicate the time of day under the collection main column of the inspection sheet. After recording the observation, resume the traverse. Pressure within the collection main can greatly affect the potential for an emission to be observed. To manage this, collecting main pressure is continuously recorded by the operator and is kept on record. As part of your inspection, compare and record the pressure reading during the inspection period to that of the previous 8 to 24 hours. You should also record the presence of any pressure deviation from normal operation and any explanation for the deviation if offered by the operator. Periodically, and at the inspector's discretion, the inspector should review the QA/QC records for the pressure measurement device. The owner-operator is required to provide access to these records at the inspector's request. Inconsistencies in the pressure readings may indicate a problem which could affect the acceptability of your observations. Now, let's quickly review some of the procedures which are fundamental to the inspection of the charging system and collecting mains. First, stand in a position where you can see the entire charging system. Be alert to machinery in motion along the top side of the battery. Unlike the door and topside traverse, charging system VE are timed only for the period they are observed. Do not count emissions from smoldering coal or fugitive emissions from elsewhere on the battery. As part of your inspection of the collecting main, you must record the collecting main pressure and compare the pressure during the inspection to the previous 8 to 24 hours. Be sure to record the presence of any pressure variation and the operator's explanation, if any. In conclusion, as a certified observer, you are responsible for clearly identifying and properly reporting all visible emissions originating from the coke oven battery as specified by Method 303. Your observations are fundamental in determining the appropriate actions necessary to correct any problems found, ensuring that the facility in question and the industry as a whole operate more efficiently and in a manner that is in compliance with applicable regulations.